It's Lewis along with Rick Basham, our wrestling podcast, just for fun. Of course, Sunday night was Money in the Bank, WWE's, I guess, first pay-per-view with full attendance, because they did WrestleMania with partial attendance, but Money in the Bank was a packed house. Mr. Basham, did you watch this little adventure on Sunday night?
I sure did. I wasn't planning on it. I actually almost forgot until one of my buddies texted me like the day of the show while I was out playing golf. So I got back about an hour or so prior and figured I'd go ahead and watch. And I'll tell you, it was good seeing that packed of a house in an arena watching wrestling again. It was so good to see that. And on top of that, I thought the show itself was pretty darn good. There was obviously you'll have those one or two matches where it doesn't feel like it's that interesting, but I think overall the show, for me at least, delivered, having not watched probably since WrestleMania back in April.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's definitely proving that WWE is a much better product in front of a live audience. My question is, had it not been so long since the ability to go to a pay-per-view type deal was there, would the crowd have been that hot on another year? Because I thought the same thing. I thought, okay, the crowd was really into it. With you, a couple of matches I could care less about. There's a couple of storylines that I had to kind of do some research to pay attention as to what's going on. But I also think the show had some good moments. Like, I was down with a lot of stuff that they did. There was some unexpected stuff. There were some things that I think everybody thought was going to happen that really didn't necessarily happen. So let's skip through I don't think anybody cares that the Mysterios lost the tag team titles to the Usos. I think we can all agree that no one cares there. The women's Money in the Bank was interesting, the way Nikki Cross, or now Nikki ASH, won that whole thing. It's kind of like a bad Molly Holly knockoff. I'm not sure what they're doing there. The other thing I can't understand is they spent a lot of money to get Selena Vega back after they fired her and her husband, probably to keep her from going to AEW. But here's the question. Why did you bring her back just to lose?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, having that many participants in a match, I don't think necessarily hurt her that bad. I mean, I thought she shined pretty good. The only thing that I didn't necessarily enjoy was probably that little bit with her and Alexa on the top of the ladder, almost like mimicking each other. I thought that was a little hokey myself, but I thought she looked good. Not a bad outing, but yeah, it was weird how they brought her back on SmackDown, I think about a week or so prior, and then she's been kind of on a hot streak, but then nothing really comes of it in that match.
Yeah, I like Alexa Bliss, but I'm curious to see how her stick is going to play when you have to do it live and it's not video anymore. Because, again, I don't understand the WWE's need for video and special effects, because I get it. Spoiler, wrestling's not real in the sense that the storylines are all predetermined. So yes, it's real in the sense that those guys 100% put their body on the line. So it is, I agree with Jericho. I won't call it fake, but no one believes for a minute that Alexa Bliss is hypnotizing Selena Vega in the middle of a match on a ladder. So why go there? But I thought, as far as women's matches go, I give them credit. They're all athletic superior, and some of those matches are pretty good, but I wasn't super interested in it. I was just kind of more surprised with the finish. My biggest problem with this is Kofi Kingston is being jobbed out left and right, and I don't get why. You made him your world champion, and he's a serviceable guy. He's been there forever, but you had him get destroyed to lose his world title, and then you give him a shot at Bobby Lashley. You build all this up like Kofi's on the winning streak again. He's been a champion before, only to have Lashley go out there and just absolutely obliterate him. So I don't understand what the need, unless it's to set up what we're going to talk about here in the future. But I feel like Kofi deserved better, and we had him on the show. He came in and talked to us one of the last SmackDowns, I think, that was still live in Indy before the pandemic.
Yeah,
and he said, hey, I don't get paid by the minute, so I don't care. Like, he had the attitude of, man, I just get paid to show up. That's cool, whatever you want to do. And I guess if you're making that much money, you could do it. But I just feel like that dude deserved better, I guess, especially when you're going to let Big E win the Money in the Bank You know what I mean? Like he's your guy winner.
Oh, yeah.
But you kind of totally job out Kofi. At least put him and Xavier back in the tag team picture and let him be tag team champions because, you know, we know they can do that really well.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. It was weird. I didn't really expect that. Of course, now, you know, having not watched for a while, I didn't really know what the deal was with Kofi. I know he kind of built, like you said, he built back up some momentum, but then he gets more or less John Cena, Brock Lesnar, SummerSlam 14, and it was really bad. I did not expect him to just get thrown around like a rag doll and make Lashley look like $1 million, which I don't mind. Lashley's great at being just this big, just huge heel and powerful guy. But when you have the history that Kofi does, I can see where the disconnect is there. And I'm really surprised that they basically gave him no offense whatsoever in that match.
Yeah, I think they finally found their niche with Lashley. I think if you make him just a big, you know, dominant dude and use his physicality, I think it works because the stuff that he was doing with Lana was galactically stupid. And the stuff they had him brought back with before that was equally dumb. So I think now they finally got him in that role. And I think for whatever it works for him. Like, I think it definitely, he has the physical chops to pull it off. The next thing they did was the Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley thing. And I'm not sure. I know a lot of people like Rhea Ripley. I don't know where I stand on the whole Rhea Ripley thing. And truthfully, I don't know where I stand on the whole Charlotte Flair thing either. But I do know they had problems with it because this was the match where supposedly Becky Lynch was supposed to make her return, which her gimmick, okay, but here's the thing. You're all about women's empowerment and making the women's wrestlers, but not diva, yet Becky's shtick is to call herself the man. Somehow, somebody please explain to me how that, you know, is what it is. Needless to say, Lynch, despite on her social media taking pictures of herself in front of the Dickies Arena, did not make a return last night during the match, which Charlotte Flair won another title. But I just don't know what I think of. I don't know what I think of Rhea Ripley. I think Rhea Ripley is probably the reason that Ruby Riott got let go because you only really need one tatted up metal looking wrestler, and Rhea Ripley has the hot hand right now. But I don't know that I just don't know what I think of her. Like, I'm on the fence with that whole thing.
Yeah, I am a little too, because what I remember a year ago, she was wrestling Charlotte, I think, for the NXT title. Is that right?
And it was the first WrestleMania that they did with no fans on one of the nights, and she ended
up losing.
Yeah,
and I was like, really? They're going to put the NXT title back on Charlotte, only for her to lose it. I think it was only a few months after that at one of the takeovers. It wasn't even Rhea who beat her, which was weird to me. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence too. This is in no disrespect, obviously, but she just looks way too muscular to me. I don't know if that's weird or not, but it almost seems like she hits the weight room a little too much. I don't know. For whatever reason, I can't get past that. Plus, gauges freak me out enough because I think they're going to kill themselves and like just rip their whole ear off the side of their head. So that's another reason. But yeah, it is. I will say though, the match I thought was fantastic. Those two together working a match are perfect. I loved it. I did enjoy though Charlotte giving Fort Worth the bird once they started chanting that because it blacked out, but then it came back and then she was still doing it.
See, crazy. I'm glad you said that because a lot of people, and you and I talked about this before we started talking, I thought I was the only one experiencing connectivity issues during it. But the rumor is because they had to cut the feed, apparently WWE has a policy where you cannot make obscene gestures to the audience. And we want Becky chants got to Charlotte. So she told the audience what she thought, gesture wise. So they cut the feed. And then when they rejoined the feed, apparently they had issues after the fact. So I don't know if that was the true reason or not, but that's what the going rumor is. We already told you that Big E won the Money in the Bank match, but I do have to give credit where credit was due. Ricochet did a move in the Money in the Bank match that I had to rewind. Like, it was like I stopped in my tracks. He did this thing where he was – how did he do it? He was on the ladder, and then he somehow got from the ladder on as he was getting tossed, landed on the top rope, and did this, like, full-blown – complete flip somersault on everybody else. And I was just like, okay, like, dude has mad skills.
Yeah. So, and even prior to that, he was on the outside, I think on one of the ring posts. He walks the top rope to get onto the ladder to climb it to try and grab the briefcase. And then he gets pushed off, stops and lands on the top rope, does that flip, and everybody's freaking out, including myself. Because, good Lord, he is talented. It's a shame that, like, he's as small as he is, but you put that guy, I thought he should have stayed on NXT for a little while longer than he did, because, man, he was perfect for that show. But, yeah, 100% agree. He's one talented and skilled dude.
He would be the one where, especially now that Finn Balor is back on SmackDown, move Ricochet to SmackDown and let him and Finn Balor work a program, because I think they would love that. You know, I think they could carry each other for sure. Speaking of SmackDown, Roman Reigns, who after 7 or 8 years in the WWE has finally found something that works, in the sense that he's just, you know, an arrogant jerk and Paul Heyman is his mouthpiece. Everybody expected Brock Lesnar to come back tonight, because the rumor is Lesnar still has a contract, but they're holding off because they don't want to waste it on no fans. And there's another rumor that they're building Roman Reigns to have a match with The Rock at WrestleMania next year, which, again, I don't know if The Rock can do it, just because the last time he and Cena had a match, he legitimately got injured. And with his film career, you know, there's a lot of insurance things that come into play there. But you brought Edge back to take on Roman Reigns. And I will say, all things aside, this was a good match. Edge can still go at his, you know, advanced age and advanced health issues. I want to see Edge have one more title run. I like Edge. I think Edge can play the heel. Edge can play the baby face. Like, Edge is that guy. And I think, you know, I didn't like Edge, though, truthfully. I thought him and Christian back in the day were hilarious when they did the E and the C and the 5 minutes flash photography. I thought those guys were great. But I remember liking Edge when no one else did, because he was in some kind of match where it was like a mixed match or whatever, and anybody could get pinned. And it was down to like Edge and a girl in the ring, and Edge speared the chick and got the win. And I was like, okay, that dude can work. But I thought this was a good match for the most part. I wanted to see Edge actually win, but kind of where they're going with Roman, you knew that wasn't going to happen. And it looks as though they are setting up Edge and Seth Rollins, which will probably take place at SummerSlam at this point in time, which I'm okay with. I think they'll do well with each other, but I would have liked to have seen Edge come out with the belt.
Yeah, I was the same way. When I was watching, I was pulling for Edge so much. And a great story. I went to a house show while I was in college up around Fort Wayne. I think it was SmackDown was on tour. This was right around, I think, Elimination Chamber, maybe just after or before. But me and my buddy were there. We got tickets real close to the aisle where the guys come down to get in the ring. And one of the guys I got the high five was Edge. And little did I know that he was going to retire like 2 months after that. So that's why I kind of connected with Edge, or where I really started to connect with him. But I was cheering for him so hard in that match. He was coming back, made his comeback. Usos and the Mysterios run some interference, and then all of a sudden Roman Reigns somehow wins that dang thing. And I was so mad. But what happened afterwards was great.
Yeah, for the first time in a long time, I think people were expecting Brock Lesnar. I don't know that people were expecting what happened. And credit to the WWE for keeping it a secret, because coming off Fast and Furious 9, making his triumphant return, old school haircut and all, John Cena returns to the ring. And didn't really do much other than the "you can't see me," but it got the people going. It got Reigns going, and he kind of on Raw the next night throws his hat in the ring and lets everybody know that he's back for a while to take on and wants a shot at Roman Reigns, which, you know, it was good to see Cena again. And I think WWE needs names like Cena, whether he's going to be on the part-time schedule or do whatever is, you know, remains to be determined. But I think that was a pretty good surprise. And I think it worked for the most part.
Yeah, it took me by surprise too. And I didn't expect myself to really get that pumped when I heard that music. But when I did, man, I just went off. Like, it was fantastic. And yeah. I think he just wrapped up, I think it was Suicide Squad. It's coming out here soon.
Yeah, so he's got Suicide Squad, and he's got his character from Suicide Squad is getting an HBO Max show. So again, I don't hate Cena in movies. Fast 9 was an absolute train wreck, but Cena wasn't bad in it. And Cena, when Cena plays the comedy role, like, it's not bad. Like, he's, you know, he can play that. He's not horrible. He's no Rock. I think nobody will argue the fact that the greatest wrestler to ever make the transition from wrestling to Hollywood, anybody who brings up Hogan, you're lying to yourself. Wayne "The Rock" Johnson is the only one that's actually done it and done it well.
Yeah, I would agree. But going back to Cena, I think next night on Raw, basically saying, "Oh, I'm here. Roman Reigns is an a-hole." And I don't know why they bleeped that in Raw, but they didn't bleep out MVP cutting his promo with bullshit. So, standards, but
right.
But Cena being back should be fun. I think I should like the match with Reigns that apparently they're going for. And plus, it's at SummerSlam where you're going to get probably, I would hope, a big crowd, maybe 40, 50,000. They might push it to 60,000 if they really open up the floor.
Where's SummerSlam's in Vegas? SummerSlam's in Vegas, right?
Yes, it's in the Raiders Stadium.
Raiders Stadium. Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I took a look at the floor plan. Looks weird. So I'm random, and I go on Ticketmaster every time to see where or how the
seating chart
look. Yeah, the seating chart, and it's interesting. Like, they've got, obviously the one side is kind of tarped off, but it looks like the ramp is coming from like here, and it comes to the middle almost. It's probably going to be a lot like they had the Rumble the last few times they went to baseball stadiums, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it's a cool stadium. We saw it. It was not open yet. They were in the final stages of construction when we were out there in February of 20 before the pandemic hit. And it was Pablo and I actually went and took a look at it. And I mean, it's a pretty cool building for sure. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how, and I mean, again, you could see a little bit of it last year during NFL coverage, but obviously without people in it, it's going to be a whole different story when they pack it. It was good. I think the only other highlight to Raw that really merits any kind of mention is the fact, well, let's mention one other thing before we get to the highlight of Raw. Pat McAfee has found his niche as a SmackDown. I give it up to the Colts punter. Like, he has solidified himself on the commentary team, and he's found something that works for him. Other than his podcast is good, but, you know.
Absolutely, he has. I was listening to his show. I think it was from yesterday. He had Michael Cole on, and Michael Cole gave him a huge compliment. He's like, more or less, you've made me kind of reinvest myself into this, because I've been doing this for 25 years, and it's kind of easy to find your groove or whatever, but you've kind of revitalized me a little bit. And I'm like, wow. And that just proves how good he is. I remember when Cena came out at Money in the Bank, and, you know, Cole's screaming his head off, Cena's here, and Pat McAfee, without missing a beat, is like, where?
Yeah. Oh, he's the Tony Romo of wrestling commentary. Like, he's legit, you know, he's good and he's entertaining. And I think it's good for him because I think he can be wild and crazy guy on WWE. and it plays better than it does when he tries to do that on Fox or some of the other sports things that he's been on. Like, I think it works. And ESPN is a train wreck. So, Mr. McAfee, if you're watching or listening, stay the hell away from that. You don't want any part of it. Like, they can't figure out what they want to do. The woke sports network is having its fair share of problems these days. But hey, keep pumping the WNBA, because that's setting the network ratings on fire. So anyway, the one thing that did happen on Raw to give Lashley some competition, which is probably why they let Kofi Kingston get destroyed. At 55 years old, the man himself, Bill Goldberg, makes a triumphant return. And I get Goldberg is doing it, let's be honest, for a paycheck. But the second thing is, when he wrestled in Saudi Arabia the last couple of times, his matches haven't been good. So if I'm Goldberg, I do want to try to go out the right way. I don't know that he necessarily should have came back again. I think the way he went out the first time he came back against Lesnar at that last title run, you had people behind you. I think people dug it. It was good enough to get by, and I think it was a good way to end. But I am curious to see where they go with this. Is this one of those things? And my thought is, The Fiend has not been on TV for a while. Goldberg took the title off The Fiend. Do they put the strap on Bill Goldberg at SummerSlam only to have The Fiend come back and defeat Goldberg to take the title back to kind of even up there?
That is an interesting thought, one that I hadn't thought about. That's starting to make a lot of sense in my warped, twisted brain. I think oh, go ahead.
No, I say, but then the question becomes, at that point, what do you do with Lashley?
Right. Yeah. And to me, like, I'm kind of glad Goldberg is back. I've missed him a little bit, but at the same time, you're putting him up against an equally good Hoss-style wrestler. And I feel like they've done this before with big guys, and it never really has worked, and the matches have kind of come off very clunky. One of them that comes to mind for me is Kevin Nash and the Giant from WCW, aka Big Show. They did that a whole bunch of times. I always remember the one clip with Nash almost dropping the Giant right on his neck, trying to do the power bomb, and I'm like, oh dear Lord, I don't want that to ever happen to another human being ever again. But I mean, Goldberg's good for those short kind of power burst matches. That's what he's good at. I think he'll do that against Lashley. Do I necessarily like that he potentially could win a title? No, not really. But if it's going to lead to maybe The Fiend coming back or something like that, that'd be cool. So there's probably one other thing that happened on Raw that kind of made a bit of noise, and that was probably the main event segment, huh?
Yeah, I mean, Nikki ASH cashing in the Money in the Bank title. Like, I don't know where they're going with that. I don't get why you put the strap on Charlotte for one night. Was there a reason you had to get it off Ripley? Like, was there something behind the scenes that's going on there that nobody knows? Because I saw that, and good for Nikki ASH, she's getting hers. But it just didn't make a lot of sense to me storyline. You had this build-up with Charlotte and how Charlotte is this and Charlotte's back and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, one night later, really, it's gone.
Yeah, that to me was kind of strange. And not only that, it felt very rushed. What I mean by that is it seemed like while Rhea and Charlotte were brawling after the match, all of a sudden the music starts playing. They're not even done brawling yet. It's like right as Nikki's coming to the ring, Rhea just then throws her back in, and it was a fairly quick out from what I remember, from her winning the title, counting the 1, 2, 3, to her next to Sign Guy, front row there in Dallas.
Yeah, and they were done.
And then it was off the air like that. Yeah, so it felt kind of rushed and clunky.
Yeah, I didn't get that because, see, I thought they were setting up Charlotte for a Becky Lynch return. Like, that's what I thought, because then you build towards Charlotte and Becky at SummerSlam, and I guess you can still do that. But I just wasn't sure, I didn't get it. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. And I will give the show credit. It was actually decent up until that point, and then I was just kind of like, All right, because I was happy that they didn't job out Jeff Hardy to carry him across. Like, I thought, okay, you gave him his debut and you let Hardy get the win. Like, that was kind of cool that you didn't make, because lately Jeff Hardy's become like Jobber Hardy for whatever reason. So, I don't know. Interesting to see where the show goes. Of course, SummerSlam is just a couple of weeks away, 3-4 weeks away.
Yeah, not that far away. I think the show, and it's weird, the show is on a Saturday night, but I guess it makes sense because Vegas being a tourist town, I don't know how many people will stay overnight for a Sunday night pay-per-view, but yeah, that should be interesting. I think it's like third weekend of August, so probably just about a month out.
So are you getting who do you got? What do you like for SummerSlam, or what do you like with the way they're going?
Let's see. I'm really hyped for Reigns Cena, if that's the way they're going, because I think that'll probably be the match of the show. If anything, they need to close probably with that, because I mean that's two of your biggest names in the last about decade and a half. Rollins Edge kind of intrigues me a little bit because they both can go, like they both can wrestle, even with Edge being as hurt as he is half the time, and he's still got that motor, dude, and he knows how to connect with the people. That's the best part about it, and that's half of what he needs to do pretty much from here on out, the last stage of his career. I'm pretty excited for that. Don't know what the payoff will be of whoever wins, but it'll be entertaining probably either way. And then my thing is, I just don't know when Becky's going to come back. I would have thought you have her come back last night, with all the eyeballs will be more on, USA Network rather than Peacock or whatever it is. But I thought they would have had her return maybe that night. So it'll be interesting to see whether or when the man will come back around.
Yeah,
I'll be tuned in either way because I love Becky Lynch.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see where they were going with that too, unless they're holding back Becky even more, because now you've got Cena, Edge, and Goldberg, which is probably three of the biggest names you've had on a pay-per-view in quite some time going into it. So I'm with you on a couple of things. I think Edge and Rollins, if they stay healthy, will be the match that has the best spots in it all night, and it'll be the most entertaining one. They could go either way with Goldberg and Lashley. It wouldn't surprise me. I feel like Cena gets the win, but the rumor about them setting up Rollins or setting up Reigns for Rock, does make some sense to it. So I don't know. There's a lot they could do with, that. I mean, you would think that Cena is coming back, or does Lesnar get involved somehow with Cena, and now you set up Lesnar Cena, and you go that route at SummerSlam. So I don't know. Interesting stuff. If you are a WWE fan and you're looking for something to watch, and I don't know, Mr. Basham, if you've checked any of these out, Broken Skull Sessions on Peacock is phenomenal. Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got the one with probably the Jericho Austin is my favorite, but the Foley Austin is good. And they just did one with Austin and Kevin Nash. And it's pretty enlightening. If you want to go back to the old WCW, WWE Monday Night Wars days, there's some good stuff that comes out of that one. So check that one out, and then we shall reconvene in a couple of weeks. Let's do a SummerSlam preview in a couple of weeks and see where things go, and then go from there.
Oh, before we go, a little homework assignment for all you listeners and watchers out there. I've picked probably my favorite SummerSlam match. Lewis probably will too, but I'm going to have you guys watch this. You don't have to watch the whole show, but watch this match from that show. SummerSlam 2002, HBK Triple H. HBK's first match back in probably about 4.5 years at that point. It still holds up to this day and is one of my absolute favorite matches. Absolutely phenomenal. Storytelling is great. It's a no-holds-barred match, unsanctioned match, so they're doing anything and everything, throwing in tables, ladders, trash cans, the works. And HBK takes it all and pulls out I won't spoil it. I'll stop myself if you haven't seen it. But
I know which one you speak of, and it is a good one. I, too, will go with a SummerSlam favorite that involves HBK, but for a completely different reason. I cannot remember the year, but it's HBK versus Hulk Hogan. And HBK does the most ridiculous selling of all of Hulk Hogan's 5 moves.
Yeah.
That entire match. And again,
Yes.
is it a high-quality wrestling match? Absolutely not. But you could tell that HBK did not like Hulk Hogan at all. And with every move Hogan made, every sell that HBK did is so exaggerated and so over the top that it completely merits a watch, if for no other reason, the sheer entertainment value of it.
Yes, absolutely. And that was 2005.
Was that 5? Okay.
Yes, 2005.
I had 6, so I'm glad I didn't say it.
2006 was Randy Orton versus Hulk Hogan. I'm sure that was just as bad. But, yes, 2005, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan is entertaining just for the fact that, you know, I think Hogan throws his head into the turnbuckle, just the top turnbuckle, and Shawn Michaels, in his infinite athleticism, goes from one end of the ring to the other in no time.
Oh, it's hilarious. Like, it's for no other reason other than you could tell that Michaels wanted absolutely nothing to do with it and was just trying to make Hogan look as bad as he possibly could throughout the entire thing. So,
I think the scuttlebutt at the time was they were supposed to have 3 of these matches, and then Hogan put the kibosh on it. So,
and that was it.
Just a train wreck, but a fun one to watch, without a doubt.
Absolutely. So we will reconvene again when it gets closer to SummerSlam. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And be well, I guess. I'll steal a line from Pablo and end it on that note. Thank you, Mr. Basham, as always.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be part of it.